This is one of the richest cities on Earth. It is also home to one of the oldest, largest, and most profitable criminal networks in history. They are called Triads. Tens of thousands of members, operations in Hong Kong, mainland China, Macau, Southeast Asia, North America, Europe, and Australia. Their money comes from heroin, counterfeit goods, illegal gambling, money laundering, and online scam compounds that have moved tens of billions of dollars. The United States has sanctioned their bosses. Macau has jailed the most powerful gambling operator in the world. Hong Kong has won thousands of convictions. None of it has stopped them, because the Triads are not outsiders attacking Hong Kong. They are built into it: restaurants, nightclubs, real estate, construction. And according to decades of investigations, parts of business, politics, and law enforcement themselves. This is the story of how Hong Kong's Triads became the most enduring criminal empire in the world, and why almost nothing has been able to destroy them. The center of the global Triad network has been Hong Kong for over a century. Roughly 50 Triad societies are estimated to be active in the city today, with around 14 drawing the most consistent attention from law enforcement. 4 of them are conventionally identified as the largest and most powerful: Sun Yee On, Shing Wo 14K, and Wo Hop To. The 14K was founded in 1945 in Guangzhou by Wang, a Kuomintang lieutenant general, originally as an anti-communist political action group. After the communist victory in 1949, the organization relocated to British Hong Kong and gradually transformed from a political movement into a criminal enterprise. Today, the 14K has approximately 20,000 members spread across roughly 30 loosely coordinated subgroups, with operations in Hong Kong, mainland China, Macau, Southeast Asia, North America, Europe, and Australia. Sun Yee On is the more cohesive of the two. It is operated under the hereditary leadership of the Heung family, since its founder Heung established it in 1919. And it is generally assessed as the most powerful triad in Hong Kong today. Its strongholds are Tsim Sha Tsui and West Kowloon. Membership estimates range from tens of thousands into the 6 figures depending on the source, with no reliable consolidated number. Shing Wo was founded in 1930 in Sham Shwe Po and is part of the larger Wo group, a family of affiliated triads that also includes Wo Hop To, founded in 1908, and Wo On Lok, known locally as Shwe Fong. Together with 14K and Sun Yee On, the Wo group triads account for the majority of organized criminal activity in Hong Kong. The Triads also operate extensively in Macau, particularly in the casino junket industry. For 2 decades, the junket system was the documented mechanism for moving high-roller Chinese gamblers, and the capital that followed them across the border. At its peak, VIP Baccarat accounted for roughly 60% of all Macau gaming revenue, with licensed junket operators numbering in the hundreds. Multiple academic studies and the United States Treasury have documented direct triad involvement in the junket trade. In January of 2023, a Macau court sentenced Alvin Chau, the founder of Sun City Group and the most powerful junket operator in the world, to 18 years in prison. The convictions included fraud, illegal gambling, money laundering, and the offense of criminal association, which under Macau law specifically means leading or belonging to a triad organization. The Macau Court of Final Appeal upheld the sentence in July of 2024. Chow was ordered jointly with co-defendants to pay the Macau government roughly $3.2 billion United States dollars in damages. It is the strongest legal documentation in modern history of the link between triad networks and the formal Macau gaming economy. The international reach is significant. Triad members operate in Chinese communities across the United States, Canada, Australia, the United Kingdom, the Netherlands, South Africa, and dozens of other countries. South African law enforcement, in the foundational research published by the Institute for Security Studies, identified 4 major Chinese organized crime groups modeled on Hong Kong triads: Shing Wo, Sun Yee On, and 2 factions of the 14K known as Hao and Nai. The same paper documents triad presence and intra-group violence in Johannesburg and Cape Town, far from the original Hong Kong territory. To understand why the triads have proven so durable, you have to understand the organizational structure that distinguishes them from other organized crime groups. The triads are not hierarchical organizations in the way that the Italian mafia or the Japanese yakuza are organized. There's no single boss giving orders to a chain of command. The structure is closer to a franchise system. Senior members at the top, called dragon heads or mountain masters, provide overall direction and resolve major disputes. Beneath them are several ranks of operational leaders, each managing specific territories or business lines. At the bottom are the rank and file members who operate with significant autonomy within their assigned spheres. The 14K's structure illustrates the pattern. The organization is divided into roughly 30 subgroups, each controlled by a red pole, the operational level commander. A new recruit starts at the bottom and rises through demonstrated capability. The name 14K itself, by the most widely cited account, comes from the address of the organization's original Guangzhou headquarters at 14 Po Hua Road, with the K standing for Kowloon, where the group re-established itself after 1949. The 36 oaths recited at initiation are a separate and older tradition, inherited from the 18th century TND Hui secret society, and shared across all Hong Kong triads, not specific to the 14K. This decentralized structure is the source of the triad's durability. When law enforcement arrests a senior member, the organization does not collapse, because no single member is essential to the structure. Specific operations may be disrupted. The overall organization continues. The Hong Kong police have arrested thousands of triad members over the decades, including many senior figures, without meaningfully reducing the total scale of triad operations. The ritual structure that initiates new members is part of what holds the system together. The 36 oaths cover specific scenarios: betraying a brother to the police, sleeping with a brother's wife, stealing from the society's funds, exposing the secret signs to outsiders. Each oath ends with a specified punishment, traditionally death by a specified means. The oaths are taken seriously within triad culture. Violations are punished severely. The social pressure to maintain loyalty is reinforced by the consequences of leaving, which can extend to retaliation against family members. The Hong Kong legal framework treats triad membership as a criminal offense in itself. The Society's Ordinance, which traces its lineage back to the Triad and Secret Societies Ordinance of 1887 and was substantially strengthened in 1949, makes it illegal to claim membership in a triad, to hold office in one, or to assist in its activities. The Organized and Serious Crimes Ordinance, enacted in 1994, gave police expanded investigative powers, heavier penalties, and the authority to confiscate proceeds. The legal regime is among the most aggressive in the world for targeting organized crime, and it has produced thousands of convictions. Yet the triads continue to operate. The structural advantages of decentralization have outweighed the enforcement pressure. The triads have diversified across criminal categories in ways that mirror legitimate business diversification. Drug trafficking remains a substantial revenue source. The 14K played a major role in heroin and opium distribution from the Golden Triangle, the region where Myanmar, Laos, and Thailand meet, although it never monopolized production, which has historically been controlled by Burmese militias, Kuomintang remnants, and ethnic armies. The drug trade has shifted over the decades from opium to heroin to methamphetamine and synthetic drugs, with the triads adapting to whichever substances generate the highest margins. Counterfeiting is the second major category. The same distribution networks that move drugs also move counterfeit luxury goods, electronics, pharmaceuticals, and currency. The triads do not typically manufacture the counterfeits themselves. They control the distribution from mainland Chinese factories to retail markets in dozens of countries. Hong Kong's position as a global container shipping hub, with historically light customs scrutiny on certain categories, made it the natural intermediation point for these flows. Illegal gambling has been a triad business for over a century. Underground gambling operations in Hong Kong, mainland China, and the Chinese diaspora generate substantial cash that then requires laundering. The Macau junket system was specifically structured to facilitate both the gambling itself and the cross-border movement of capital that accompanied it. Money laundering became an increasingly important business line as the other categories generated cash that needed integration into the legitimate economy. The Triads developed sophisticated mechanisms for moving cash through legitimate businesses, including restaurants, nightclubs, real estate, jewelry, and import-export operations. The Hong Kong financial system, with its sophisticated banking infrastructure and historically lighter scrutiny on certain transactions, was a natural channel. Online fraud has emerged as the major growth business of the past decade. The 14K, traditionally associated with heroin trafficking from the Golden Triangle, has become one of the central organizing forces behind the scam compound economy of Southeast Asia. In 2019, the senior 14K figure Wan Chai, known internationally as Broken Tooth, struck a deal with the Karen Border Guard Force in Myanmar to develop a special economic zone called Shwe Kokko, which subsequently became one of the largest centers of pig butchering scam operations in the world. A University of Texas study estimated that pig butchering networks moved roughly 75 billion United States dollars to cryptocurrency exchanges in the 4 years from January of 2020 to February of 2024. The Federal Bureau of Investigation reported $5.8 billion in investment fraud losses to American victims in 2024 alone. Most of it was pig butchering, human trafficking, arms trafficking, extortion, and protection rackets round out the portfolio. The Triads operate restaurants, bars, nightclubs, and entertainment venues throughout Hong Kong. Some of these businesses are legitimate, others serve as fronts for criminal operations. The mixing of legitimate and criminal businesses makes enforcement difficult, because separating one from the other requires the kind of detailed forensic accounting that law enforcement agencies struggle to sustain at scale. Here is the part of the story that is rarely discussed in coverage of Triad operations. The Triads do not exist solely as criminal organizations. They also operate as networks of legitimate businesses, social connections, and political relationships that extend deep into Hong Kong society. Several of Hong Kong's wealthiest business figures have, over the decades, been the subject of regulatory and law enforcement allegations of Triad affiliation. Some Hong Kong politicians have been documented as having Triad connections. Some senior figures in Hong Kong law enforcement, customs, and government have been investigated for similar connections. The most documented example involves the late yu-tung, the founder of the Chow Fook business conglomerate. Chung was, at the time of his death in 2016, ranked by Forbes as the 58th wealthiest person in the world, with an estimated net worth of 16.6 billion United States dollars. He controlled New World Development Chow Fook Jewelry Group, which is the largest publicly listed jewelry chain in the world, and major holdings in hotels, infrastructure, and transportation. In 2009, the New Jersey Division of Gaming Enforcement, evaluating a casino licensing application, raised what it called credible intelligence concerns about historical 14K Triad affiliations involving Chang. Subsequent regulatory reviews, including the 2022 probity review of the Star Casino in Brisbane, surfaced similar concerns. Australian and American reporting documented allegations that Chung had business connections to Wan Kuok-koi, the senior 14K figure known as Broken Tooth, including alleged stakes in Macau VIP gaming rooms during the 1990s. Chow Fook has consistently denied any Triad affiliation, and no court has ever found Triad ties as a matter of legal fact. The point here is not the verdict on any specific individual or company. The point is that the question itself of where the boundary runs between the Triad networks and the legitimate Hong Kong business economy has been a persistent subject of regulatory inquiry across multiple jurisdictions for more than 3 decades. Broken Tooth himself was formally designated by the United States Department of the Treasury on December 9, 2020, under Executive Order 13818, the implementing order for the Global Magnitsky Human Rights Accountability Act. The Treasury identified him as a leader of the 14K Triad and as a corrupt actor engaged in drug trafficking, illegal gambling, racketeering, and human trafficking. 3 associated entities were sanctioned alongside him, spanning Hong Kong, Cambodia, and Palau. This pattern of overlap between triad organizations and legitimate Hong Kong business is not unusual. It is structural. The triads operated as the unofficial regulatory and dispute resolution system in working-class Hong Kong neighborhoods during much of the 20th century. They provided security, arbitrated commercial disputes, and maintained order in districts where the colonial government's presence was limited. This created what one researcher called the legitimate face of organized crime. Businessmen who succeeded in these neighborhoods often had relationships with the triads that controlled the relevant territory. As those businessmen grew their operations into legitimate corporate empires, the relationships did not necessarily disappear. The Hong Kong police maintain a register of court-recognized triad experts who testify in cases involving organized crime. These experts have documented patterns of triad penetration into legitimate institutions, including senior government, the police force, customs operations, the legal profession, and accounting practices. The penetration is not complete, and most professionals in these fields have no triad connections, but the documented pattern of overlap is significant enough that prosecutors and investigators must account for it in major cases. This is one reason triad organizations have proved so difficult to dismantle. They are not external criminal threats operating against Hong Kong society. They are partly embedded within Hong Kong society, providing services and maintaining relationships with legitimate institutions, even while running parallel criminal operations. The handover of Hong Kong from British to Chinese sovereignty in 1997 created uncertainty about what would happen to the triads under the new political arrangement. Some analysts predicted that the triads would migrate to other Chinese communities, particularly in Western countries with large Chinese diaspora populations. The Chinese Communist Party had historical hostility to organized crime, and many expected aggressive crackdowns. Mass migration did not occur. The triads remained in Hong Kong and adapted to the new political environment. The adaptation involved increasing cooperation between Hong Kong triads and mainland Chinese organized crime structures. The border between Hong Kong and Shenzhen, once an actual political boundary, became a more porous administrative line. Triad operations expanded into the Pearl River Delta, where their distribution capabilities were valuable to the rapidly growing manufacturing economy and to the parallel, counterfeit, and gray market trades. The relationship between the Chinese government and the triads has been complicated. Officially, the Chinese Communist Party views the triads as criminal organizations to be suppressed. Practically, the Chinese government has at various times been alleged to have used triad networks for specific political purposes, most prominently during the Hong Kong democracy protests of 2019. On the night of July 21, 2019, more than 100 men in white shirts with alleged triad ties attacked civilians and protesters at the Yuen subway station. Hong Kong police arrived 39 minutes after the first emergency call. A subsequent investigation by Radio Free Asia, published in 2023, reported that the Hong Kong Police Organized Crime and Triad Bureau had monitored the WhatsApp planning chat for the attack in advance. Foreign Affairs magazine, in an essay published in August of 2019, identified the Yuen attack as evidence of triad mobilization aligned with state interests. The relationship is not formal endorsement, but is also not consistent opposition. The mainlandization of Hong Kong since 2020, accelerated by the national security law that took effect on June 30th of that year, has shifted the triad operating environment significantly. The expanded enforcement powers of the Hong Kong government, the integration of Hong Kong police with mainland Chinese security agencies, and the broader political tightening have created new pressures on traditional operations. The response has been further internationalization. Significant portions of triad activity have shifted to Southeast Asia, particularly to Cambodia, Myanmar, and Laos, where weaker enforcement and large Chinese diaspora populations provide a hospitable operating environment. The United States Institute of Peace has estimated that the Cambodian scam compound economy alone generates roughly $12.5 billion United States dollars annually, equivalent to about half the country's gross domestic product. The Hong Kong triads are one example of a broader pattern in modern organized crime. The most durable criminal organizations are not those with the strongest central leadership or the most violent enforcement. They are the organizations that have embedded themselves into legitimate economic and social structures in ways that make extraction difficult without disrupting the legitimate structures as well. The Italian mafia in southern Italy operates on similar principles with deep penetration of legitimate construction, agriculture, and waste management. Businesses making aggressive enforcement against the criminal operations costly to the legitimate economy. The Mexican cartels have evolved towards similar embedding strategies, with significant penetration of legitimate Mexican business, politics, and law enforcement. The Russian organized crime structures developed during the post-Soviet period operated on the same principle, with extensive penetration of the legitimate Russian economy. The Triads represent the most enduring example of this pattern because they have operated continuously for nearly a century. They have survived British colonial rule, Japanese occupation during World War II, the political transitions of 1949 and 1997, multiple aggressive law enforcement campaigns, the rise of the national security law, and the integration of Hong Kong into mainland Chinese governance. The structural durability of organizations that combine criminal operations with legitimate economic embedding has proven greater than law enforcement capabilities anywhere in the world. The result is an organized crime structure that operates as a permanent feature of Hong Kong rather than a temporary problem to be solved. The criminal activities generate substantial revenue that flows through the global economy. The legitimate businesses connected to the Triads continue to operate. The professional services that handle these flows continue to profit. The system has become structural in the same way that the financial systems of legitimate economies have become structural. It persists because every party that could meaningfully disrupt it has accepted the costs of disruption as exceeding the benefits. So here is the entire mechanism in one sentence. The Hong Kong Triads are not external criminal organizations attacking a legitimate society. They are embedded networks that provide criminal services alongside legitimate services, generating revenue from both, with structural ties to legitimate business and political institutions that make full enforcement against the criminal side impossible without disrupting the legitimate side that depends on the same networks. The ceremony in the back room of the Wan Chai nightclub is real. The 36 oaths are real. The decentralized organizational structure is real. The criminal business lines spanning drugs, counterfeiting, gambling, fraud, and trafficking are real. What is also real is the embedded relationship between these criminal operations and the legitimate Hong Kong economy that has made the Triads one of the most durable organized crime structures in the modern world. This durability is the lesson of the Hong Kong case. Criminal organizations that operate purely as external threats to legitimate society are eventually defeated by law enforcement, because the political will to fund and sustain enforcement remains higher than the political costs. Criminal organizations that operate as partly embedded providers of services that legitimate society values, even informally, are far more difficult to defeat because aggressive enforcement imposes costs on legitimate institutions that the political system is not willing to accept. The Triads understood this dynamic in the 19th century when they emerged from political secret societies into commercial criminal operations. The same dynamic operates today. The specific criminal activities have evolved from opium to methamphetamine to online fraud. The structural relationship with legitimate society has remained constant. If you want to understand how the businesses that quietly run modern markets actually work, the ones that operate in the gray space where criminal and legitimate enterprises become difficult to separate, that build durable revenue streams from activities that governments officially oppose but practically tolerate, and that persist across political transitions because every party that could disrupt them depends on aspects of what they do subscribe to terminal wealth. We break down the businesses hiding in plain sight, one industry at a time,